and as a result of the government's white paper, there will be a single regulator for the Environment Agency, for the water sector, which will bring together both the environmental and the economic regulation in the future. So we're not, I think the important message is we're not waiting for those policy changes. We are out there increasing the number of inspections, increasing the staff that we've got on enforcement action. And certainly we are out there, and not every, we're certainly, there are times when of course we have to give advance notices for health and safety reasons, but generally speaking, we are working really, really effectively to get to grips with the sector.
Thank you very much indeed. Perhaps you could turn your mic off. Thank you. So what I'm going to do now is, this is a question that came to us from one of our local MPs, the Liberal Democrat MP for North Cornwall, Ben Maguire. Not choosing it because Ben is an MP, but because I think it's a very useful place to start our Q&A. From each of the panel members' perspective, how have we arrived in such a mess with our blue environment? And have we reached rock bottom, or is there further to fall? Let's run through contributions from our panel. Lower Rich, Cornwall Council.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think we've reached rock bottom, but I think the reason why we arrived at this, I think it's just multiple reasons, really. I remember, back in the 1980s, I was brought up in St Agnes and in the seeing raw sewage pipe out of the cliff, just going straight to the sea. And I think it's about expectation. You know, back then, you just kind of, that's what happened. You were used to it. I remember going in the sea and seeing sewage. As campaign groups like Citizens Against Sewage sort of evolved, the expectation became a lot higher. People weren't prepared to tolerate it. And I suppose policymakers, governments, the EA, a lot of what they do is, a lot of the funding is based on what the public expects, and I think we've reached a point now where we're just not tolerating anything at all. We don't want to see any sewage at all go anywhere, at all go anywhere, level it does what we have. So I think we've arrived here for multiple reasons: a lack of investment, a lack of political will. Thank you.
Thank you, Loic. Obviously, a picture there that you're portraying that you think our attitudes are changing, but not necessarily the improvements that you would hope for, though we have seen some. Obviously, South West Water, a major factor in this. Let's turn now to Karen Cameron. Do you think we've reached rock bottom, or is there further to fall?
Building on what Loic just said, we had the Clean Sweep programme of the 90s and noughties, which
we were promised would give us the cleaner seas. We paid through the nose for it. Now you've come back for more.
Well, so that was the first revolution, if you like, putting wastewater treatment in around the coast and across Devon and Cornwall for the first time, because before that it was just literally pumped and boated out to sea. The next revolution is to deal with the roughly 3% diluted sewage that spills that we now know about, because in 2021 we put the EDM, the evaporation monitors in. So 100% of our 1,600 storm overflows have a monitor on them, and that information about when those spills happen, when they start, when they stop, is shared widely by us and the Waterbit Live app on the Sector Against Sewage app, on the Environment Agency database, and the Rivers Trust database as well. So all of that information is out there now, so we're much better informed. We have data on when spills are happening. We didn't have that in the past, and now we can really focus and target our efforts. So within this 5-year period, South West Water is investing in 291 of those storm overflows, the highest spilling ones, the ones that are closest to our bathing waters, the ones that are closest to our shellfish waters as well. And those are the ones we're tackling first in this 5-year period.
Thank you very much indeed, Karen. I'm not going to come to you, Mark, because you kind of gave us your state of the nation in your PowerPoint presentation. Thank you for that. Let's talk to John, who's representing agriculture. We saw Mark's figures there. Agriculture, the top of the headache list when it comes to the causes of contamination in our rivers. Do you think things are getting better or worse? Have we reached rock bottom?
I think Mark alluded that we've definitely reached rock bottom. I think Mark would agree with that. And we're on the up. And I know for a fact, say, maize grown 20 years ago was a very, very difficult situation to manage due to change in varieties from and cover crops, etc., etc. That's a lot better. That's one example. There's slightly still this investment, but we've got to remember that our primary job is to produce food. And that's when you come to farmers, we do the two most important things in this world, and that is produce food and basically very, very much more like keeping water clean. And I will say that we have got a sewage work just above our farm, and a lot of work needs to be done there because the river down below was not particularly clean in the middle of the summer. So, I have a sewage sludge as well. That's getting better regulated, but there's still issues there, which technically I won't go into now, but it's just not enough joined up thinking. I think we are definitely improving. We're definitely going past problems, definitely.
Okay, so we've bottomed out, we're on the upward curve, according to John. I'm just going to stick with the line now and turn to Victoria Vivian from the CLA. What's your perspective, Victoria, on the question of whether we further to sink or we're on the upward curve?
Well, I suppose it depends on the number of people in the county at any one time. There are so much noise, so many factors that are dealt with here. I live on the Lizard. It's a lot of marine conservation area all the way around it. It's natural vulnerable zone, so we are very heavily regulated already. And that hasn't happened overnight. That's happened over a long period of good regulation to clean up the rivers and the seas, but there is still work to do. I think that we have bottomed out. I think we're just further ahead on the curve, perhaps, than people understand, because we've been working in agriculture for such a long time to eliminate, for example, the toxins from after farming. So it's been a long journey. Perhaps we need to talk more loudly about the work we've already done.
And I'm going to be coming to all of you at the end of this live stream, and I'm going to ask you what you feel realistically we can move forward with today, rather than just more words. I'm going to say, what action do you see can come out of this summit? And I should say to the audience here that following this live stream, there is actually going to be panel discussions, which is really aiming to get proper pragmatic steps rather than just hot air. So it's very much a pragmatic approach to cleaner waters. Let's just turn to Lawrence sitting next to Victoria. Lawrence from the West Country Rivers Trust. Lawrence Caldrick. Have we bottomed out? Things can only get better. There was a song about that, wasn't there?
I think the interesting one on here is that our rivers are the lifeblood of our communities, okay? And just like our own blood and our own health, it's an indicator of what we put in our bodies, what we do with our bodies, that indicate that and dictate that. And just in the same way, our rivers are an indicator of what's happening, what's being fed into those catchments. And you can see from the reasons for failure that sort of Mark put out, that pretty much corresponds with what's happening in the catchments. Is there agriculture? Are there people? Are there sewage? And so therefore, you've got to sit there and understand the health of those issues, the health of those rivers, whether it be the sewage that's coming out of our sewage network, whether it be the things that are things like fipronil, flea treatments that are coming through the sewage system because it wasn't designed to take it out, whether it be the sediment coming off of our landscape, the nutrients, whether it's pesticides, whether it's road runoff, whether it's pharmaceuticals. The list is endless and complex out there, and each catchment is completely different in terms of its makeup. So therefore, just like you can't treat health as just a generic issue, you have to do the same thing with our rivers. So understanding locality matters. The good thing is in the 20 years that I've been at the Trust, I've seen a huge increase in the amount of scrutiny and interest of our rivers, a huge amount of data that's coming out. There are fewer places to hide. And the actions that we see in our catchments that lead to these damages are the actions of individuals. And again, just like individuals, we have to see them as individuals, not collectives. So we see amazing things happening with some of the farmers we work with. We also see horrific things happening. We can see amazing kind of issues, activities happening from all across the system, whether it's the water company or as the individuals. whether that be illegal activities, immoral activities, amoral activities, but we just don't know we're having impact. So have we reached rock bottom? Well, I think we've certainly reached the point where we're now overtly aware of the issue we face. The scale of the problems, though, should never be underestimated. For the amount of support that needs to go into farming to create that resilient landscape, so we get the flood risk management, water quality, and drought management, as well as the food, as well as the investment in infrastructure, is going to be huge.
Thank you very much, Lee. I see a lot of questions coming through there from Matthew Taylor, Lord Matthew Taylor. But before we go to it, I just want to complete my panel, if that's okay. Let's go from the rivers to the seas, and Dr. Cllr Leigh, Chair of the Marine and Coastal Partnership. Are we grounding on the very seabed of sludge, or are things on the way up?
I think we need to move from rock bottom to blue bottom. We've got a whole section of what I call blue blindness. We're not bothered by anything that's blue until it turns brown. And we need to be a bit cleverer than that, don't we? So in Cornwall, and this is really good news, we have got a little beastie called merle, which is like a seaweed that's coral. And it's up to 400 years old. And we just found out we've got 1,000 hectares of this stuff. In this, there are 400 and odd species. It's the equivalent of 8,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And we've got this around our coast. So we need to start protecting it. So anything that's brown upstream or green upstream will then go into our blue bottom. Let's not be blue blind anymore.
Thank you very much indeed, Claire. And let's bring it back now to Service Against Sewage. Very much fingers on the pulse and a campaigning organisation. Have you got less to campaign about, Giles, or more?
150% more. I will say that. First of all, I'd like to take on that point about expectations. Like, is it really unreasonable to expect that we shouldn't get sick when we go in our wild waters? Is it really unreasonable that we shouldn't expect to be destroying our rivers, our lakes, and our seas? That doesn't seem like a change in expectations to me. That just seems like absolute common sense. Pumping sewage into our sea was never okay, right? It wasn't okay when you were a lad. It was okay when I was a lad. It is definitely not okay now. And so I just want to take a moment, if I may, just to say that I'd like to start by remembering 8-year-old Heather Green. She's not with us now because she died after going on holiday to Dawlish Warren and contracting E. coli 0157, and horrifically she died from the liquefaction of her internal organs. She went on holiday to a blue flag beach. That should have been fine. It wasn't. So there are lots of other people who are getting sick. And her mother, Julie, brought together campaigners and people who got sick, who do get sick, the people, the real life people who are getting sick from using our wild waters. People like Ruben, who also featured in the film. Susie, who got so sick she had to have open heart surgery to repair valves in her heart. Every year, in Service Against Sewage, we get notified by between 1,000 and 2,000 people a year that they got sick from going into our blue spaces. These wonderful places that we all love, and we want to encourage this, but there's a huge risk. Of the 2,000 people roughly a year who notify us, 3/4, 75% of those people got sick from going into waters that are apparently good or excellent. So good or excellent. These are meant to be our cleanest blue spaces, yet they still got sick. The more we look at our rivers and seas, the more we see how polluted they are. This is as much about how we monitor and how we investigate as it is the people who are getting really sick. So have we reached rock bottom? Personally, I don't think so at all. We are about to lock ourselves into that rock bottom if we continue with the water bills proposed by the government that locks us into a privatised water system and all of the systemic damage that that's been causing. So you ask how we got into this how blue space got into this mess. It's a huge systemic failure. It's a huge systemic failure of the water companies, of the regulators, of everyone in this system. We have a moment now where we can turn that around. We have to put public health and the environment before profit. Until we do, we will see continued pollution by the water companies and putting lives at risk.
Giles, thank you very much. I just want to do a quick canvass of the room. Who thinks things have hit rock bottom and things are getting better? Who thinks things are as bad as they've ever been? And who thinks things are worse? Okay, interesting there. For those who may not see on the live stream, I would confidently guess a majority there for things getting worse. Lord Matthew Taylor is going to be chairing the sessions this afternoon when we're hoping to come up with action. We put your hand up, Matthew. What would you like to say?
I just wanted, so first of all, I would say I have two hats here. So I chair the Local Nature Partnership Board, which is all about restoring nature. Cornwall's been ahead of the game, so it has a local nature recovery strategy, it has a marine strategy, far ahead of other parts of the country. So we are doing some good stuff. So in that sense, maybe not rock bottom, because there's some advanced, but in that terms of nature on rock bottom, our nature is still not recovering, it's going down. And that is a global issue. It partly relates to climate change, it partly relates to pollution, it partly relates to how we use our, or rather abuse our environment. And what we're trying to do as a board is turn that around. But sadly, I wouldn't say we've reached rock bottom. There are plenty of species at risk of extinction. In the natural environment is in crisis, and that crisis is increasing. And the only way we tackle that is by working together to find solutions for it. And that's going to involve agriculture, it's going to involve water companies, it involves how we individually treat our environment. Don't use wet pipes, for example, because they create blockages that then lead to pollution, for example. They might be literally illegal. The second rock bottom question, though, is one where you've got a weird dilemma going on, because you've heard how, when 40 years ago, when two guys came from Service Against Sewage, well, it wasn't in existence, and we want to set up something called Service Against Sewage. What do you think? And I helped them organise the first campaigns in Parliament and so on, right back then. All sewage was either pumped directly into the sea or went into what was called works, but was actually just a collection of sludge, which was then dumped into the sea. So 100% of our sewage around Cornwall was going straight into the sea 40 years ago. So in 1%, you say, well, things are clearly not rock bottom because most sewage is now treated. What's rock bottom is the public's tolerance. So 40 years ago, Lothar and I used to, I was swimming off those beaches. I can remember I used to wear a snorkel and I'd see ship floating around. And Chris Hines, who founded Service Against Sewage, used to say, the bottom line is it's not okay to put shit in the sea. But then it's just regarded as normal. Then sewage treatment came in, huge expanse, and most of it was being treated. People kind of relaxed about it. But actually, some were still going into the sea, and now the rock bottom is people aren't prepared to see it go on anymore. And I think it's a fundamental change in public mood and what is tolerated, and we need to use that anger and discontent, which is right, people aren't wrong about that, to really change things. That's why you're getting more funding for the Environment Agency. It's why people are doing television programmes about something which, when Loic and I were, little kids sitting in the sea just was normal. It never was okay, as was being said already, but now we're at rock bottom tolerance of it.
Thank you very much indeed, Matthew. As somebody who used to cross the Moon River as a child with toilet paper flapping around your leg, I well remember those days. I'd like to move on now because Paul, a Cornish resident, has submitted his question online in advance of this live stream, and I think it echoes the view of many people. His words: Cornwall's beaches rival the best across the globe, and with the quality of our amazing beaches and bathing water being constantly eroded over the last few years, it will not be long before they become a laughing stock with no one wanting to come here. What guarantees can you give, Carolyn from South West Water, to people who use our beaches, both locals and holiday makers and the hospitality sector, that the quantity of legal releases of effluent will fall below your own target? What can you say to people here who feel so passionately that things aren't changing, about change?
Well, firstly, I feel it passionately too. I came to South West for a reason, to make a difference 3.5 years ago, and I'm pleased that the extensive investment that's going into storm overflows, I mentioned those 291 storm overflows that are around the coast, close to our bathing waters and shellfish waters. They will be spilling under 10 each year by the end of 2030. So that's the programme that's in place now. You can hold us to account for that. The names of those storm overflows are out there, and we will be reporting on our progress over the next 5 years. That's £780 million it will take to reduce those storm overflows. Now, going back to your question about guarantees to tourists and holidaymakers and residents, what we've seen over the last calendar year, so during 2025, the interventions that we've taken have reduced the number of spills by 17%. But number of spills isn't really a very good indicator. Many people in the room would agree. The duration of those spills has also come down by 25%. So the interventions that we're making are having an impact. They are working, but it's a massive job. There's 1,600 storm overflows in Devon and Cornwall that we need to tackle. So it will take some time, but we are planning to get all storm overflows to under 10 spills per year by 2040, which is 10 years ahead of the government target. So watch our progress as you have been and hold us to account. Join panels like our watershed panel, come and hear from the executive team and myself about the progress we're making.
A lot is often said, isn't it, about failing Victorian water and sewage infrastructure. One of the interesting stats from the research in Dirty Business was actually, everybody makes a lot of this, but it only accounts for 12% of the network. How much do you need to spend to sort out this Victorian infrastructure? And how does that compare to the amount of money that goes to shareholders?
So I'm told that since 1989, we've invested twice as much money in the network than we have given back in dividends to shareholders. Our programme for this 5-year period is around £3.2 billion. That's to tackle the investment that has been identified in conjunction with the regulators for the system. And like I said, 780 million of that will be on storm overflow specifically. So that's our programme for the next 5 years. Shortly, we'll be working with the regulators to start refining and prioritising the programme for 2030 to 2035 in tune with the priorities that government have set out in the new Water White Paper, which we hope, and part of my personal ambition is that we will have a stronger emphasis on catchment management and working in collaboration and partnership with other organisations like those who are here today.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you to repeat your names and the organisations that you work for the benefit of our online audience. And to those who are actually watching this online, thank you very much indeed for taking an interest in this Healthy Rivers and Seas Summit. I'll go first as I'm the chair. I have the privilege. My name is Julie Skentelbery and I work for BBC Cornwall, but today I am chairing this summit on the Healthy Rivers and Seas for Cornwall Council. Let's just go around our panel, starting, if we could, bottom right with Loic.
Yeah, like Rich, Cornwall Council, I got very long climate and environment.
Let's just carry on, Karen, weave your way through.
Okay, so I'm Karen Cadman, Chief Sustainability and Natural Resources Officer for South West Water and also Chair of the Cornwall Catchment Partnership.
Mark Rice, Area Director for the Environment Agency in Devon, Cornwall, the Isles of Scilly.
Claire, Chair of the Marine Coastal Partnership.
Gareth Bristow, Chief Executive of Services Against Sewage.
John Perry, Farmer, and representing MFU Cornwall.
Victoria Vivian, ex-president of the CLA and here representing land and land management and farming.
Lawrence Humphrey, CEO of West Country Rivers Trust, also sit on and work with the catchment partnerships in the area and on the Regional Flooding Coastal Committee.
Thank you very much indeed. Why did that remind me of university challenge? Let's get a response there. Karen talking very much about the future, about the investment, defending South West Water and the amount of money it's putting through to our infrastructure. Somebody with a passion for the sea, Claire Eaton, does that hold weight with you?
It's definitely something we need to tackle. And if we're talking about money, we need to think about how much money comes into Cornwall just because of the environment we have. So we've got like 48 ports and harbours, we've got the longest coastline of any county in the UK, and we've got 16,000 jobs. And of those 16,000 jobs, nearly 20% is in tourism. So we are very, very self-interested in making sure our seas and rivers are healthy, habitable and attractive to community. And I'm just going to add that we don't need to forget the other inhabitants of those. So seals, humpback whales, tuna, all of these things are coming into our seas. That's partly climate change, but partly because at the moment they're acceptable, they've got food source and it's a good place to be. We don't want that to disappear, do we? So we need to get it right, but we need to get it right from top to toe.
I want to focus on a particular problem with Stygians in a moment. So I'm going to be asking if there's anybody here who's been living in Stygians and living through a difficult, so we'll be with that in just a minute. But I just want to get Giles's take on Carolyn's statements about the investment in the infrastructure. To you, does that stand up or not?
I would say absolutely not. History is a good guide to our future, and what we've seen is, yes, there was a clean sweep, yes, there was a big programme of investment, but in a privatised system like this, the principal thing to do is to make profit. That's the one duty that Ofwat hold the water companies under, and so those companies do what they must and do what they need to, and then it tails off. And we have seen a downward slide in the quality of our waters and our environment as a result of ageing infrastructure that's just not being kept up. So I personally feel that these are quite sort of hollow promises. Until we see that investment hit the ground and actually land, then they are just promises. And my experience of this comes locally. So I'm not in Cornwall, my family live in Devon, and on the River Lynn there, the community there is passionate. They are campaigning for our tiny little River Lynn that has been utterly destroyed by sewage coming from the upline sewage treatment works. And South West Water come to engage with our community and they have promised and promised and promised clean-up. It is not getting better, and the £23 million has not materialised. It's meant to have upgraded our sewage treatment works. And we've gone through the last period of investment through before PR24 that we're in now, and there are numerous examples where the privatised water companies, and in this instance South West Water, has not made the investment it said it would, and has had to pay customers back their money. So we have this ludicrous system where we agree and negotiate really hard for an investment to clean up our waters, then the water companies don't deliver, and then the money gets given back to us. This is madness. So I don't see why it's going to be any different into the future at all. So until we see real systemic change, I don't think that we can really rely on the water companies to be delivering us clean waters.
Thank you very much indeed for setting the scenes with both sides of the story then. I want to talk about an issue which certainly when I'm doing my radio show, every time I talk about sewage pollution, it comes up. How on earth are we going to have to deal with this with the housing targets, building more and more homes, more people using the toilet, more sewage? So I want to come to that in a minute. But let's talk now about some people who've been on the very sharp end of sewage problems, Stygians. So would you just tell me your name and just give me a brief description of what you've been living through in Stygians?
Sure. I'm Andy Snipes and I'm representing the Cornwall Chamber of Commerce today, but I also campaign for clean water. The situation in Stygians has been frankly horrendous over the last 2-3 months. We have sewage of every worst kind, excrement, toilet paper, sanitary products, hypodermic syringes, running through the streets where children are being walked to our local junior school. Worse still, at the bottom end of our village, in the family area, you have it running into people's homes. I've met 2 ladies down there who frankly were shells of people, dark-eyed, faces gaunt, because they have this, literally flowing into their front and back doors. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous, and it's not a recent situation. It's something that's been ongoing for the past dozen years at least. South West Water held a public consultation in the village 2.5-3 years ago, Karen, and recognised that we've got a problem and a significant works promise not delivered. And the residents today, this morning, again, there is sewage running out of those manholes. It is starting to affect people's well-being, mental health, physical health. We've got people being sick. We're today on day 58 of the year Stadium sewage goes down to Ponsley treatment works. The CSO to Ponsley treatment works has been running for 56 and a quarter of those 58 days. That is not the situation that is getting better.
Thank you very much indeed. I think, Carolyn, that is heartbreaking. If it was my home, if it was your home, we'd be in bits. What on earth is going on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want to apologise to the residents of Sidian for what's happened. Andy, you're right, we met, didn't we, two years ago now. We talked about the improvements that were lined up at that point in the plan for investment. They were scheduled, I think, for later this year. We've brought some of those forward, as you know. So the situation in Sidians at the Hindley Road area, as I understand it now, has been tackled, but we've still got the boundary issue. So the engineers have been out there looking at the design that's needed to address that problem now. So it's a live situation, and I just want to reiterate that, you know, it's an awful situation for those people living there, but the investment is happening.
Can I just put the point to Mark Rice from the Environment Agency? Surely it's the Environment Agency's job to just wade in there and kick some butt over this.
Well, the environmental impacts of Stiggins, whilst it's clearly having an impact on the community and public health, was relatively limited. But we have intervened. We are working with Productive Water. We were called to a meeting with the minister who got involved and the MP, and so this has gone up in terms of focus. But I think it illustrates a broader point that South Western Network is vulnerable to climate change, ingress from water, from groundwater particularly at the moment, and the impact of not proactively managing this and considering the impact of climate change is that there are more communities that are likely to face this kind of issue without that kind of proactive approach to asset maintenance that we expect from the water company.
Thank you very much indeed, and I think all our sympathies with you, Andy, and your fellow residents. So, you know, we will be keeping tabs on it, I'm sure. I want to talk about the question of planning and the future of Cornwall and housing. Whenever we mention this on BBC Cornwall, there will be people who will call in and go, this is all well and good, but things are hanging by a thread in terms of pollution. Things are only going to get worse with the target. Loic, just tell us what the government target is for extra housing. Is it 4,600? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it is. It's 4,421 houses.
Sorry, I had number 179 onto the disc there. So I think it is a problem. Loic, just do you want to explain what you as a local authority are doing to consider the extra effluent and the extra water demand that all these properties are going to involve?
Yeah, I mean, recently we've had very well publicised issue of nutrients going into the Cllr. So there was actually a block on planning consents in that area because the issue was so bad, so much foliage was running into the river basin, just completely upsetting the balance. There is a huge housing crash in Cornwall. Everybody knows there's a housing crisis here. There are people, you know, we have families in temporary accommodation. We have, you know, hundreds of people just applying to rent one like a private property. So there's huge pressure to build houses. But there's a, you know, one planning officer said recently actually a well-designed housing estate with really good drainage is much better than a poorly managed field in terms of runoff. So it's not, I don't think necessarily building more houses means that there will be a problem. I think it's just how we build those houses, how we look at things like sustainable urban drainage systems, which Cornwall is really good at. You know, we're really good at doing these, like, you know, when you have these little unreed beds and ponds and things. So it's about really, really good design, putting the money in as well, and making sure that the National Planning Policy Framework gives councils like Cornwall the power to make sure that new build housing estates don't adversely impact. I think the problem really is not necessarily the new houses, it's the existing houses that are off-grid, and I think they'll probably bring this up in this issue of septic tanks. That's the pressing problem at the moment.
And we are going to refer to this in a moment. We'll sort of explain the issue that is going on with private residents with septic tanks. I'd just like to go to Mark Rice, who is the area director of the Devon and Cornwall for the Environment Agency. What sort of work goes on, Mark, as to work out how much the environment can stand in terms of development and where?
Yeah, I mean, the Environment Agency is not the planning authority, but we have a dedicated sustainable places team that work really closely both on strategic allocation of sites as well as on the development control side. So we are looking, as was described, to ensure that, you know, the water is managed on site, and so that, you know, new housing doesn't increase flood risk, that the new housing, that the drainage is separated from the foul sewage to ensure that there's no impact on, no additional impact on that sewage network as well. But clearly, over the longer time, we do need to plan sewage infrastructure that can deal with the demands of future communities and recognise the amount of growth that's happening across Cornwall. I would point to the water cycle study. It's absolutely critical to do that, and the Environment Agency is here to help Cornwall Council to ensure that we can deliver that study which informs future development planning.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure, you know, the others don't really understand the niceties of how that system works. Can we turn to this issue which Loic, oh sorry, I'm just going to turn to Victoria, politely in the end, Victoria Vivian from the CLA, the Country Land and Business Association. Your take, Victoria?
Well, I did feel that Loic neatly offloaded that problem straight onto greenfields, poorly managed apparently, perhaps become rather beautifully managed biodiversity net gain fields, and then on people who live in rural areas with septic tanks. The big problem is not coming from those two areas, and I just thought it was time to stand up for our rural areas and say, we're doing a lot of good work, we're not poorly managing our land.
There's a gentleman up there. I want to turn to septic tanks in a minute, but would you just like to tell me who you are and briefly explain your point, please?
Thank you, Julia. Robin Mulgrew, Cornwall Council for Weybridge, Western Swing. Just a quick question for Karen. Do you think South West Water should be a statutory consultancy in the planning process?
Every single water company will do up to be a statutory consultancy in the planning process. So we're not at the moment, but we do work really closely with the planning team here at Cornwall Council. We share information about hotspots, so where we have concerns about capacity in wastewater treatment works, and we're working really hard with the planning team to try and align our planning cycles so that we become more in tune with the local plan process, its development, and align that with our what's called a drainage and wastewater management plan, but also a water resources management plan process as well. So we do work really hard. We'd like to be a statutory consultancy in the planning process.
Thank you, Thank you, that was a really interesting point. Do you think you're listened to when you contribute to planning debates and go, look, simply in this area, the system's overloading, we can't take more?
Yes, I think we are listened to, but without that statutory status, it's hard to have the full influence. But I know that others share the view that we would like the water company should be a statutory consultancy.
Thank you very much indeed. Can we turn to the specific issue of septic tanks? I'm just aware that we've got 25 minutes and an awful lot to get through. Can we turn to this issue of septic tanks? And I know we have representatives with us from Cllr, who are one of the companies that empty people's septic tanks. We all will have seen their lorries go along with another amusing slogan on the back, which I'm not going to repeat at this point. Perhaps you could just tell us very briefly your name and what problem you are facing is as a business and for your customers.
Hello, thank you for inviting us here. It's so important to us at Cllr and other companies like us. I'm Leigh Anthony, and we are the directors of Cllr Waste Disposal. We are a tank company that serves Cornwall and beyond, and people on private drainage. Cornwall has a very high proportion of people and businesses on private drainage. We as a company move over 60 million litres of sewage a year. Cornwall is in a critical state with disposal of sewage, and I'm not exaggerating, we are in a critical state. We and other companies must take sewage to Bristol to dispose of it, which is not sustainable, and the carbon footprint is terrible. We must maintain caravan sites, tourism attractions, Mr. and Mrs. Cornwall in their own homes. So that's a three-part, well, I've got three questions, but I'd like just to say, we need help. We need help now. We need help with Surface Water, the Environment Agency and Cornwall Council to make Cornwall a place where people can live and want to come to. So it's my three-part questions. To Surface Water, looking ahead to the summer for this year, we only have limited space in Surface Water to dispose of sewage waste. Has Surface Water got a plan to be able to cope with tangled waste in Cornwall that is brought to you from outside contractors like ourselves? And to the Environment Agency, I'd like to say, if Surface Water states it is not responsible to take waste from contractors, and was already stated to us it cannot cope with our waste, where do you think the sewage is all going? I would like to ask the Environment Agency, who's responsible? And to Cornwall Council, I'd like to say, because Cornwall cannot cope with the amount of sewage in Cornwall, why are we still building houses without taking into consideration where the waste is going?
Thank you very much indeed. There's a lot there which we're going to have to sort of process fairly quickly. I guess that the key point, let's start with the problem of disposal. Can South West Water take it? Why can't South West Water take it, Karen?
Yeah, so we've got, as you know, limited sites where we can receive the tankered waste from septic tanks. We are doing a full review, and I know we've met with the team fairly recently, review of the capacity that we have at each of those receiving sites to try and free up capacity ahead of the summer season. That's underway. We're also looking at logistics, so Cllr and other companies have to book a slot ahead, and we've been discovering that some of the slots aren't being used, which is limiting the amount of waste that we can receive. So that logistical review is happening, but we're also looking at the capacity as well in order to get more capacity ready for the summer. But it's not a quick job to build your wastewater treatment works, and I know you've done some activity of your own to try and build more capacity within the business. So yeah.
Can I just ask what happened? Have you always had to take it out of the county, or is that relatively new?
No, we have, but it's got 100 times worse. Cornwall was a critical state, and we are working with Surface Water, but Easter is coming early this year. We deal with a lot of caravan sites. I don't want to give names, but we do with national companies, and we haven't got enough slots in Surface Water, especially in April, to take the waste. We will be taking it to Bristol.
Okay. So thank you very much. I'm just going to turn to the EA on this one. I mean, you've got tanks and tankers full of food.
I mean,
and then how do you go to Bristol with this? It's a bit bonkers.
Yeah, I absolutely recognise the problems that are facing, but I hope we're working very closely with you now to work out in terms of the permits that are required to get the infrastructure in place in Cornwall to manage this waste going forward. The background is previous prosecution taken by the Environment Agency. There was widespread illegal spreading of septic tank waste on fields in Cornwall. This was a big concern to public health, a big concern to the community. So, whilst I recognise there's a problem here, the blame is, whilst the cause is the regulation. Regulation is there to protect the environment and public health, so no apology for that. But we are really keen to work closely and to provide the technical advice needed to ensure that the infrastructure can be planned in Cornwall.
I'm sorry we don't have longer on that topic, but you have made your voice heard, so thank you very much indeed. Can we turn to agriculture? I was fascinated by the table which Mark displayed, really just giving the state of play from the Environment Agency when it came to our sources of pollution. And number two was the water company. Number two was the water company, and number one was agriculture. What part do our farmers Clay. I'd like to start with John from the NFU. You've already very clearly spread the message that your primary job, a very worthwhile and necessary job, is producing food for the nation, and the environment is secondary, but you do care. What kind of stuff is going on in agriculture to make you not number one on that list?
I think, yeah, it's quite basic. Well, can I twist that and say what we have been doing and what we are doing, and I'm going to put it back to my business over the last 20 years. I've been involved with cultural stewardship, which is a funding stream from government, which is, I've got listed, fencing rivers off, buffer strips to stop soil going into the rivers, creating boundaries. We're using herbal laies, which makes the soil more
this is a form of pasture.
It's a type of permanent pasture, but it increases the infrastructure so that we can drain soil. The soil can take more water, basically. Making fallows, reduce fertiliser, all that sort of stuff. But the secret is to make our soils better, and I think we all understand that, because actually in the bottom line, if we've got better soils, we've got more productive farms. So that's the lesson I was to say is going out there. I'm not saying it's rushing out, but it's getting out there. And as I said, it's so much better than it was 10, 15 years ago. I think Mark and Safis will agree with that. So that's that. I mean, I'm just going to add a slightly, I've got a problem myself, which is EA and cycle water. I've been handling sewage sludge, treated sewage sludge for 20 years now. And we had an incident where we had to drive and to work through with 2 jars ago to tip sludge. And I said, well, this is stupid. I've got a dung store which is Southwest Water part funded. I'd already spread the dung out there. I said, there's an empty store 200 metres away from the field. Why can't we tip it in that store and then spread it when the weather's better? Because the government are trying to make better stores. And I was just destroying them. I'm driving them on the bed. And I had the EA down there and I had the contractors down there, and they couldn't agree that I could put the sewage sludge into a covered store and then spread it when it's dry in 2 weeks.
John, thank you very much, but we're getting into a very precise detail.
So that's one example of not joined up thinking. We probably didn't join up thinking, it's 2 weeks.
I absolutely agree. And what for you, John, then will be the one thing, because this is what we want to come to today. We don't just want it to be a moaning shop, we want it to be a proactive, pragmatic way of seeing ways of improving. The good stuff that you do, these herbal laies, the fencing, what can make that easier for farmers?
A resilience in the business, in profitability, funding, and probably education, and just getting it out there. But I would suggest a lot has been done. And the other thing is, with slurry stores, etc., which was mentioned, it's good in practice, but there's a lot of issues with planning, with the council, with getting these stores up, financing it, planning, then you've got land and tenancy arrangements, which make it difficult to push through. So there's a load of boundaries which are, there's a load of hoops to go through, and of course the farmer's job is actually, to win scales, the job set is having the time and the energy and the knowledge to get through this. I think that's again a lot more joined up thinking.
And I'm sure this is something that you can turn your mic off, John. There's a lot that can be progressed this afternoon in the sessions, which will be chaired by Lord Matthew Taylor, where we can look at ways that the system can work better together. Can I get to Lawrence Cldr from the West Country Rivers Trust? How do you work with agriculture, and what could agriculture do to improve in your view?
Yeah, so as I said earlier on, agriculture is not one big conglomerate. It's a series of individuals and organisation outlets. So, and John rightly said that there are lots of people out there doing amazing things, improving kind of and balancing the food provision with biodiversity, with water protection, flood management. But we tend to see and work with the people that aren't in that world and actually causing kind of illegal, as I said, amoral, sometimes immoral activities. But the cause is quite complex. So we've got people out there that just haven't had the infrastructure, haven't been in their position, have had TV, have had all sorts of problems over the years. And so a lot of that starts with just a one-to-one conversation around what's going on, what's driving that. So we have conversations around how do the farmers get out of farming just because of the fact that they've not got the infrastructure. But most of it, I think the challenges is around, there's so much inconsistency out there at the moment, inconsistency in funding. We spoke about the camel earlier on. Natural England have changed the boundaries for nutrient neutrality, which is the funding stream that farmers could use to adopt certain practices. That's constantly changing. So to try and do that also whilst trying to have the cheapest food we've ever had, where there's minimal margins, is really challenging. So our work is always trying to find those win-wins for them, those savings that they can make to do that. But things like climate change is just making it harder and harder to balance the food, the water, the flood risk, the biodiversity we want to see. And so things like our salmon, which the Cllr has designated as special area of conservation, we've seen them at risk in several of our catchments of going extinct. They're just a product of a system that is just not working at the moment. There's just too much we're asking of it.
Can I just, sorry, could you turn your mic off, Lawrence? Thank you very much indeed for that. Final word on agriculture from Victoria from Cllr, which is the Country Land and Business Association. Briefly, if you will, Victoria, what needs to happen for agriculture to be less dirty?
Well, I'm going to keep it very brief. There's one thing that Cornwall Council can do, and that's work on planning. We can get grants to increase the size of slurry stores, and they don't get planning before the grant time runs out. So, we're in a catch-22. We have the money to put the new infrastructure in, we're ready to do it, we simply can't get planning to do it. That is one thing that will make a massive difference right now.
Well, this is all about making stuff happen. Merrick, is that doable? I mean, it just seems if you guys pulled your finger out, then they can fill their slurry stores and our rivers would be clean, which we wouldn't bother doing.
Yeah, definitely I'll be speaking to analysts about that. But on the Cornwall Council, we do work with farmers. We're doing a project called Foul Rivers to Reef, so we're looking at reducing soil runoff in the foul catchment area. We can't do that without farmers, and the farmers that we're working with, our officers get on really well, and some of them are farmers themselves. So we want to help farmers. I think one of the, this has been mentioned twice, the issue of profitability. I don't think farmers are getting a fair price for what they sell. I think if we paid a fair price, if they were paid a fair price, that would give them the ability to make the investments they need to keep their soil.
Mark Rice, thank you though. Mark Rice from the Environment Agency. I saw your gesture there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on. So in addition to the regulatory work we do, part funded by our Flood and Coastal Committee, we also have a land management team that works really closely with Cornwall Council and with farmers to advise on land management practices to reduce runoff, reduce flooding, reduce muddy flooding and pollution. So we take lots of referrals and that's having a fantastic impact. And there's great examples all over the county where proactive work and guidance with farmers is getting great dividends for to reducing pollution and flood risk.
Okay, let me just set the scene. The time now is 23 minutes past 11. We're due to finish at 11:30, but if we slightly run over, I think we were slightly late starting. I want to do a few things before we conclude. I want to talk about mining. I mean, we're talking a lot. We used to talk about mining in Cornwall as if it was something from the good old bad old days. In fact, it's a very current thing with the reopening of Crofty, with the exploitation of our lithium resources. So that's something I want to touch on. I also want to ask our panel one by one. We're not bystanders here. I go to the toilet, although that may be to believe. And I wash my hands, I use the water system. Each one of us here is generating potential pollution. So I'm going to ask the panel to say one thing that you would like those who are engaged with this issue and with this live stream and with this audience, one thing simply that we could do that would make things better. And then I want to ask about proactively what you feel today's event could possibly do. But let's go with mining first of all. And I must say thank you to each and every person who sent in questions in advance. We've got a rich history of mining, but now we're looking at our mining future. We're talking about lithium, we're talking about geothermal and the extraction of lithium, we're talking about the reopening of Crofty. I mean, for you, Mark, you handle with this Mark Rice from the Environment Agency, mining mineral extraction was on your list of potential risks. What is being done to prevent potential problems in the future with this re-energising of mineral extraction in Cornwall?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a key challenge for the Environment Agency going forward. We clearly want to support this. Critical minerals are absolutely essential for the UK economy. We need to be more self-sufficient, so Cornwall has fantastic reserves of copper, lithium, and you've got tungsten in West Devon. So we're working really closely with the operators. Most people are engaged in what we call pre-application discussions, ensuring that we're providing the right advice and technical guidance to ensure that we can both manage these mines whilst they're in operation, but ensure that there's suitable aftercare arrangements in place so that in the event, that the mine comes to an end, we're able to manage that transition to the future. So yeah, we're really positively engaged, and we're really positive about this. There are also some advantages. I mean, I went down to look at the wastewater treatment works at Crofty. As a result of the investment there, you can see the difference it's already had to the Red River in terms of water quality. So this can be a really positive story, I think, for Cornwall going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. I'd like to turn to Cllr Leigh Frost. Dr. Cllr Leigh Frost has a couple of hats, don't you, with regard to mining. Obviously, your absolute passion for the cleanliness and the health of our oceans, but also tell us more, Claire.
So in my day job, I work with Cornwall School Mines, and we're just so lucky. It's the only mining school left in the UK, and we are one of the very few areas where we are revamping our mining history, and we're making it our mining present, not just our mining history. And one of the things we're working with, and because we've got all the researchers there, we've got experts, it's about making sure we monitor the right things. So the Environment Agency monitors a series of indicators as to Southwest Water, and because we're in Cornwall, we need to start monitoring metals as well, so that we can do the SPF fund that the council gave us last time. Has given us a lovely piece of kit that can detect metals and any heavy metal, anything that's sort of what we consider polluting, down to a point source, tiny amounts. So we need to start using this really cool kit, because then we'll be mining responsibly and we'll be mining sustainably.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, the next bit is really important, so I'd like to make sure that your microphones are pointing towards you so that our live stream audience can hear you. And can I just say thank you to each and every person following the live stream, and also hopefully submitting questions. We don't really have the mechanism to answer those questions live during the session, but the idea is if you post on the Cornwall Council social media or via Let's Talk Cornwall, we will hopefully find answers for you. So what I'd like to do, the final round will be asking what you think might be possible from this summit today. But I would like you to address the ordinary Joes, the people like me. We're not scientists, we're not particularly involved in any organisation connected to this, but we've all got a part to play. And I'd just like to ask you for one thing that you think individuals could do that will make the biggest difference. Let's start with you, Victoria. What would you think, one thing you would like members of the public to do?
Well, I guess it wouldn't be a particularly farming answer, but I can see why people are not installing water aerators in every single tap that they have in their house, and why new housing developments aren't making them mandatory. I think that would help our water supply. I think there's a real lack of individual responsibility, not in Cornwall particularly, but across the country. I was shocked to hear that we're using, did you say 152 litres per person per day? For goodness sake, share the bathwater. It doesn't matter, it's just too much, and we have to find ways to reduce that use, and to make sure that people don't think it's their right to use as much water as they can to turn the tap on for, and I think that would help.
Save water, thank you very much indeed. Lawrence, for you, one thing that you think people who are engaged with this could do to make things better?
One word: care. Take an interest in your rivers, give your river a voice. You should be asking the question, what's in it, and not be happy with the status quo. The problems are coming from lots of different places, so you do need to understand that. So one of the things we do is help with understanding that. that issue, one of the problems there. So, but just caring and taking an interest, which, as I say, we've seen a huge uptick over the years, which is great to see, and I don't want to see that ever go away.
Thank you very much indeed. So we've got Save Water, take an interest. John, from you, from a farmer's perspective, what would you like members of the public to do?
Well, I think, in general, I think we're very wasteful society, is that we could reduce waste in all its forms, it would take pressure off the land.
Probably by local too, eh? Charles, for you, from your perspective in service against sewage, you are built on the support of people who are aligned with your views. What would you like members of the public to do?
So it's really, really important that we do not push responsibility for this situation onto individuals. They exist within this polluting system. So I would say the thing that the individuals should do is, we have a live petition now, nearly 100,000 people have signed it, tell Cllr staff directly, thank you very much, Kirsty over there has got the, do come and scan that QR code, but to tell Cllr staff directly that we have to take back control of this water system, and we have to assess all the alternative options, and a proper assessment has to be done by government before we look into this water bill. That will continue the system. We also have a paddle out, so that's a very important thing. We have a paddle out on the 16th of May. Come join us around the coast where we paddle out again to protest and get the media along to make our voices known. We have to shift this system. Very, very quickly, there's also all sorts of bathing water communities springing up all over Cornwall who are demanding that we create new bathing waters in our rivers and also around our coasts. These are vital because if a place is given bathing water status, they are then monitored and they can be improved. And the thing I'm going to be looking for this panel from is support for more bathing waters as a beauty council.
Brilliant. Okay, so preempting the next bit, but I'll let you off. So for you, Claire, one thing that any one of us can do, which would help.
Let's stop being blue blind. Let's use the word seascape as much as we use the word landscape.
Fabulous, I'm all up for that. Loic, what would you like people who are watching and listening to do?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of people put the right things down toilets, but they're not dustbins. This thing is different to pipe down needles floating around. I'm sure most of us would be absolutely staggered to think anybody would think that's a good idea. The 3 Ps, it's the 3 Ps that should be going down. You know, the whole wastewater system that's circular, you know, the stuff gets thrown in fields, so just don't put plastic stuff down toilets. It should be, the 3 Ps.
You kind of imagine that'd be obvious, but thank you for reiterating for the heart of understanding. Carolyn, what would your urge be to the people who are engaging with this session today?
Just to follow up on Loic's, in case anyone doesn't know the 3 Ps, they're pretty obvious, but pee, poo and paper are the only 3 things that we should be putting down the loo. You should come to a wastewater treatment works and see what people actually put down the toilet. It's awful. Toys, teeth, all sorts of things. But no, care. I'd echo Lawrence's point, care.
Kenneth, thank you very much indeed. And Mark, from you, I mean, you're a professional in the environment agency, but you obviously must take it to home and think about your own life. What sort of measures do you take and would you like other people to take?
Well, I think I'd love people to think about their water use. So try and get down to that target of 110 litres a day, get a water meter and see what we're doing. Report pollution incidents to the Environment Agency. It's really important that we're able to attend as soon as we get, as soon as the pollution's out, so we can get out and see what's happened. So report pollution incidents on gov.uk. And finally, if anyone's been inspired by anything they've heard today, we've got some jobs going in water regulation. We've got degree apprentices that we're currently advertising as well. So a great opportunity for young people to come and join the Environment Agency and make a real positive improvement in Cornwall.
Feel a new life coming on. Let's take a final round robin now. What I would like to do, and I just think this is really important, this is just more than a talking shop. I would like to think that we can come up with practical steps that these people and their organisation can work together. Just before we do that, I see somebody over there in the audience, Ranger, who has been campaigning on the cleanliness of the river fowl and the oyster industry. I'd just like, Ranger, if you could just tell us what you told me earlier. You've got a book there, haven't you, briefly, from what's it, 1902, which showed there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kenny. Chris Ranger, former fisherman in Belgium, and fishing is one side of it, but supplying oysters as a food product into London. And this is from 1902, Fish Markets Hall. On November 10th, 1902, Americans were held in Winchester at Southampton. A large proportion of guests were ill, and 4 deaths, which raising the point from Skentelbery, amazed me, people are still dying from this. But Truro, 14th of May 1903, company's inspector visited Truro and ascertained that the sewage of the city was discharged into the River Truro in a crude state. 1903. It's a long time ago. So I don't think, I don't know how much hope at the moment, but
Thank you very much. I just thought it was quite interesting about the historical context. So let's do a final round robin, going what you believe might be achieved today by working together. Some really interesting stuff. I mean, one industries now it's just farmers found it easy to get planning permission. They could get the grants, we get the tanks, and that just seems to be a no-brainer. So let's see. Let's start at the front with Mark. What do you think can be achieved today?
Huge amounts, I think, but I think I focus on that work with local communities. I mean, what Giles said and Brian said in terms of, learning to love the river, form an initiative group, work with those organisations that have the ability to change things at a higher point of community is always better.
Cameron, what do you believe can be achieved today?
Well, I think I'd like to build on the partnerships that we already have in Cornwall, Common Catchment Partnership and the other funds where we do collaborate already, but to better understand how we can do that better, how we can get more for the bang, more for the, what's the phrase on that? Exactly. So there's a lot of strong working relationships, but there are silos as well. We need to break those down, and we know what we need to do.
By the way, I will be having Lee with me on my programme on Monday to tell us what concrete steps have come out of this, so we will be following up. Lois, what do you think can be achieved?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. I mean, this is an administration that's being led by Lee. We obviously healthy rivers and seas. That's one of our main priorities as a cabinet. And we want to continue to get people around the table, so we're going to be here for the rest of the day. There's over 500,000 people living in Cornwall that we representing as an administration, and we want to continue working. We want to get something done, basically, and continue to work with all the colleagues, all the people here today. But we want to just continue to get people around the table to have these conversations and get some action.
Thank you very much. John, for you and the NFU, what do you think could come out of today?
Yeah, I think I've already said we've got to work together more, and there's going to be give and take. I think it's getting better. The NFU, Ben, and our team will be looking at that with the MP, and catch the sense of areas, and that's the group. We've got more people out there, but we just need to bring it all together a lot more. Talk about planning, for one example, but let's bring it together more, and let's keep conversations going.
There's a song, isn't it? Let's bring it all together or something. Giles, for you, what do you believe? You must get involved with a lot of these events on a national basis. What do you think today here in Cornwall can do?
So I think that the one thing that will help unlock a different future would be a radical approach to transparency. So this sector is opaque. They make it very difficult to have the data. They make it very difficult to have evidence-based conversations in places. So we need South West Water, we need the Environment Agency to cooperate a lot more honestly. There is all this kind of public, shows and going around the county and saying, we're open, we want to talk. But try working in a local community that's trying to make a difference, whether it's Syrians, whether it's Lyme, whether it's St Agnes. You have to FOI, it's super legal on getting the data that you need to have a productive conversation. So greater transparency, greater openness, and a willingness to come to the table with genuine ambition, not protecting corporate interests.
Can we expect that form of transparency, Mark and Caroline? Do you individually have the power to say yes?
Absolutely. The Jones is well aware of the direction of travel. We've been working together for a couple of years on, we've been working together for a long time, sharing the eventuation monitor data. And that is a very clear direction of travel. We've got more data, more monitors that go in upstream and downstream that will be shared. And there's a national database that other organisations like the Rivers Trust are involved in. So yeah, more transparency, it's clear, it's part of the government's white paper, and we're up for it.
But that's exactly a case in point. A few years ago, South West Water was more open this year in data with. But now it's become really difficult. We can't even have a dialogue about verifying pollution events that are happening. South West Water has closed down and it's put up barriers and said, we are not talking about it because it's trying to protect commercial interests. So we do need a shift, a genuine shift to real honesty and transparency and set targets together about what our innocence each other like.
I can see that there's a difference of opinion there, and I'm sure this afternoon, under the chairmanship of Matthew Taylor, or Matthew Taylor is sitting in the back row there, that this will be one of the key issues that we'll be looking at. For you, Claire, what do you hope can come out of this today? I know it will be very blue.
It's so blue, I've got a booklet. This is the first in the UK. Cornwall has led the way in the Marine Nature Recovery Framework. Now, what I want to see from today, these 50 actions, they need to be built in. So you have to consider marine in your planning. I want to see the first planning thing coming through. You said marine is at the heart of it. So we need to make this real.
You should be a mermaid. Lovely to say. Let's get this. Lawrence, for you, what do you think can come out of? I know you're very much in community action. What do you believe could stem from the summit?
Yeah, well, I think really it builds on what Giles said is that not only transparency of data, but inclusiveness and openness of data. And what I mean by that is there are lots more data sets that are out there than just the Environment Agency and the water company. And all of that data has a real benefit and a purpose, but only if we can combine it to create lots of different benefits. But the key one I also like to pick out is driving more, better and more consistent regulation, enforcement of regulation. So we've seen it in the land management team you've got. Once they're out and about, it drives all the other things like in sort of incentives and all the other schemes we have. But you've got to put all of that data in to understand the complexity that I spoke about at the start of it.
And finally, but not least, of course, Victoria Vivian from the Country Land and Business Association. What do you think can spring forth from today?
Well, I'm going to do a now one and a then one. My now one is for Cornwall Council to work with owners of septic tanks. It sounds very ordinary, but we're always being blamed. We have no opportunity to connect to main drainage. That opportunity simply doesn't exist. Don't make it into a guilty secret that we're trying to hide from everybody. Help us to upgrade and update our sewage system, perhaps even put digesters. So that's the now. For the future, I think we need to improve the coordination between water companies, the Highways Authority, and the local flood authorities. We need, particularly at the point of planning, so that we're not exacerbating existing problems, that we are working in it with new systems that are doing better than the old systems that we're putting in. It's not about focusing on our Victorian systems, it's about using all of the contemporary technology to install new systems and make them fit for purpose.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I know it's been an easy ride for some of you. Thank you for being part of this, and thank you to our audience on our live stream. We hope you found it useful. I'm just going to finish by handing over to Leigh Frost for final summary comments, and then we will be heading into the panel discussions for the afternoon. But for those of you who have engaged, each and every comment was appreciated.
Thank you, Julie. I think the panel for being here today to front up to the issues that face us all. I think for me, why this is really important is when you become the leader of Cornwall Council, you realise that you are directly responsible for everything that happens in Cornwall, even though I don't have the power to change every little thing that happens in Cornwall. So from my point of view, it is absolutely essential that Cornwall Council takes its place to facilitate these conversations. We don't have the ultimate power, but we know as a place leader, we can bring these organisations together to deliver something. And a multifaceted issue like this means that we have to have a joined-up approach. And I think what comes through today from every single member here is that individually they absolutely have the passion to make a difference. But we have to recognise that there are massive systemic and organisational issues. You know, one criticism I will give, not of South West Water actually, but of Pennon, is that I've met with Pennon a couple of times and I've had promises and no delivery. Promises to see plans, promises to be taken to initiatives that they're working on, and nothing's happened. And whenever I see those people, I get, we're working on it. But that's no good when I've got a family that can't go to the sea for a swim, for a family day out, or right to the other end of the scale, that people have got to be knee-deep in feces. I can't go to them and go, yeah, well, I've had a word and they're working on it. That's not right. We absolutely have to tackle this issue, and we have to tackle it now, because if we keep ignoring it, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. I think there are great things here that we can all do as organisations in our own vein, particularly with farming. Cllr Leigh, so Ben Gallant at the interview took us out to a farm near Foy, and because of those root structures, it means it holds more water for a longer period. That's amazing. National Trust Fund at Godrevy are doing amazing things. They are exemplars of the farming community and things that can be rolled out. And that natural water management makes a massive difference, considering climate change is here. We've seen it this last month. It's not going to go away. So we need to make sure how we're going to facilitate and make better drainage for the water that's going to just come from the sky, let alone what we're flushing down the toilet. I absolutely think that we can do our bit within planning and how we can be easier to work with in certain circumstances. But for me, we have to create an action plan that we are all signed up to, that we're all going to do our little bit on that action plan, and then we tick it off when we've achieved it. And then we can be proud that we've achieved those things and we are making a difference. And there may be new things to go on there, but for me, that's what's really important. And I swear to God, I will never, ever use a wet roof again. Thank you, everybody.
So thank you very much indeed. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you. Yes. I noticed it escaped up.